This is something very special. Of course, films are not made for a small screen or for a TV or something. Films are made and produced for a big screen. And in movie theaters, we can also show, if we have a good movie theater and corporation, the original 35 millimeter reels, which we had last night with the first film. This is something amazing. You get the feeling, wow, now also with this break, I have to exchange the reels. Wow, I'm going to see, or I'm seeing something that decades ago people were seeing in the same movie theater. This is at the end of the 20s, of course, not the early 20s. But to return to the 4 sessions in order to give you again an idea. I started with the ancient law and young Jewish revival, meaning what was a major topic in inner Jewish discourse and how they involved non-Jewish artists, filmmakers, and at the end an audience, a huge audience, because the films were extremely successful. And then we moved yesterday to Lubitsch meets Sally, being Jewish in Berlin, a very specific perspective. There are, of course, other Jewish filmmakers who did films, or other films produced by non-Jewish filmmakers who felt that Jewish topics on the screen brings money, because there is a non-Jewish and Jewish audience in the urban center that loves to see these films. Comedies, basically, but also historical drama, monumental films with Jewish topics. In Vienna, the biblical story Sodom and Gomorrah, Samson and Delilah were filmed and were monumental movies with an immense success in the audience, also shown in Berlin. The Lubitsch films were shown in Vienna and other places as well. Now, we had Mark's lectures on literature. Now, what is the common denominator between his sessions on literature and mine on film? The common denominator is, what's common in general, is that today we not only talk about literary modernism back in the turn of the century, fin de siècle, in the 1920s, but we increasingly, because we get increasingly more material from the archives, we talk about visual modernism. And for many, many years, students of cultural history, they were just looking at painting, at the arts. Klimt, Schiele, just mentioned, and the session, the Venice School and the Berlin School, Max Liebermann, who painted a fantastic feminist painting with Samson and Delilah on it, and before it, around 1902, and it was forbidden to show in museums and galleries because nobody wanted any paintings that declare obviously the necessity to emancipate and to create equal conditions for women. So visual and literary modernism go together, and some of the very best German Jewish authors, like Otto Schnitzler, in Vienna, they didn't write anything that couldn't be brought on the screen. Otto Schnitzler, all the time he was writing his novel, story, theater plays, he always thought what this means if it will be transported from the literary text to a visual text, visualized. He himself went almost every evening in one of the Viennese movie theaters. And after the show, then he noted a lot of stuff in his diaries we still have, and you can see how movies inspired his writing, and his writing inspired directors, and there are many movies where he himself also participated. But in generally literary reception and teaching at university, Otto Schnitzler is taught as a literary writer. If I teach Schnitzler, I teach him as a script writer for films and show the films that are based on the writings of Otto Schnitzler. There are more than 100 films now throughout these decades that are based on ideas and stories. And most of you will know the dream novel, Eyes Wide Shut. by Stanley Kubrick, which is nothing less than the dream novel by Otto Schnitzler. So this just, in general terms, what does modernism mean if we concentrate on literature, if we concentrate on film. Now, I could have given lectures on those modernist films that you all know. I was asked, Dublin's Alexanderplatz was a movie. Metropolis by Fritz Lang was a movie. But these are films you can find everywhere, on DVD, on the net, and so it's nothing special about it. The special thing about modernism in terms of film, cinema, and Jewish modernism, contribution of Jewish artists, is in fact a body of films, as I said at the first session already, that is not yet on the market. You can't find them. They are hidden in archives, or they are lost, or will be found in Moscow. If you have enough dollar, you can try to get them at the archive, or in Holland, or in Amsterdam, in Copenhagen, some, or even more in Buenos Aires in the archive, or thanks the Spanish fascist regime Franco in Spain, because they kept everything in the archives. They didn't participate in World War II. So in Spain and in Portugal, the film archives have material one can only dream about. So it's, of course, irony. But it's a fact. And today also I will show you some materials that has been restored in the last few years, thanks to the archives and thanks to the archive in Moscow. So the topic today is first, from the margins to the center, acculturation on the screen. And here you can already see I'm not going through the fourth session in chronological manner, beginning 1919 and then we'll end at 1932. We will end at 1932, but I'm dealing with topics. And so we will see in the last session today, in case you have enough strength to stay seated. I think some of them in German, the German Jewish term is Schlafstunde. Some seats are empty and obviously they have the Schlafstunde right now. Again, my method will be the same. You're welcome in Stern's movie theater, and the third session, from the margins to the center, acculturation on the screen, and you see a street scene in Berlin. And we'll move first of all to the art of drawing. Some of you may have read or heard or know the artist, and writer Else Lasker-Schüler. She is one of the most important Jewish writers of this period. And sometimes it's forgotten that to the same amount that she was writing poetry, novels, theater plays, she was also drawing. And her drawings are rather interesting, sometimes a companion to her writings. Here, for instance, it's the Theben, the Prince of Theben. She herself figures as a prince, and then she's painting the prince and his entourage, and three princesses very often here, and you can think about what you see, and also all colors. There is no ethnicity that doesn't have the right to appear in her drawings and writings. And here it's not just Prince of Theben, meaning Greek, but here it's Indianerinnen, meaning the original natives in North America. So this is just to show that even for intellectual, for artists who are not filmmakers, the writing, the art of writing and the art of painting, drawing, to visualize the ideas and poems, and sometimes even through the visual level to contradict, to add, to be subversive. So Else Lasker-Schüler. And now we turn to very early movies. These are posters, again, I choose posters that were in the streets. that could be seen in Berlin more than in Vienna. The two films, Opium to the left. So this is quite interesting, because this scene in Streaming Water is here depicted only with women. But in the film, it's an orgy of women and men, and you can't, in the film you can't tell who's who, what is what. Yeah, you see naked bodies in water, and it's like a choreography, like a dance, a sexual dance. It's very, very intimate. And for the advertising, promotion of the film, of course, it becomes sexist. Yeah? This is something you never can tell from a poster for a film about the contents. Yeah, sometimes I read articles and they haven't seen the film, they just take the poster and everything is wrong what they write about the film. And then Opium is about people in post-war period or during the war who are taking opium drugs. And then their vision when they are taking drugs, becoming sick, threatened with death because they take too much opium. And the story is, the film is something about healing, about overcoming drugs. If you have real, true love, if you have love, and if you have true nature. So it's a very, in fact, a positive film at the end. And the next one, Nerves, is amazing. It's not a horror film. It's a film who tries to explain trauma. Since after the war, 1999, men and women alike have different kinds of trauma. So it's about nerves, and how to heal nerves, how to overcome trauma. They didn't have the term trauma. They didn't know about it. Not everybody read Freud. But it's a period also that Freud's writings were popularized. They could be read in small booklets. Freud writings were all over. So the film directors, script writers, and directors, of course, knew Freud. And so you have many frames, sequences, and images that try to give an interpretation. And this, of course, is wonderful for a dream, for a horror dream. You know, and the solution at the end in the film Nerves is love, nakedness, and nature. And the couple that recovers, of course, Adam and Eve, and they go through the nature and to see the mountains of Germany and Austria. It's paradise, so to say. They breathe, and you can feel their body really recovers from everything. And it's quite interesting because it's a period where we have hundreds of films playing in cities, in the urban centers, and so showing something else. So in order to recover, one has to leave. But Robert Reinhardt, the director, is a Jewish director who comes from Jewish milieu. The cameraman is Helmar Larsky. He is one of the most famous photographers of the Weimar period. He began to work in the United States and created his own style of photography, which was called painting through light. And this he kept. He influenced the UFA film industry, and many images and sequences that live from light and shadow in Metropolis are his work. He worked with Fritz Lang. So he was one of the most important cameramen, sometimes the second, sometimes the first. And in 1932, he went from Berlin to Palestine, became there one of the most important photographers, even teaching photography to young Israeli photographers and artist students, and produced also feature films, but this belongs to another lecture. So Helmar Larsky is, for those who are interested, important. Now, here I don't have to explain anything, because the poster says everything. I will say. So Nerves, and now it's different than the others. And the paragraph 175, anybody knows? Yeah, it's criminalizing homosexuality. So this is the first full-length feature film that gives arguments, again, not a documentary, feature film, against the criminalization of homosexuality, and shows scenes that have so far never been produced for films, because censorship until 1990 would never have allowed a film that in the open shows homosexuality and gives you the whole discourse about the situation and the role of homosexuality in society and the consequences of criminalization. This is even introduced by a speaker who explains the situation in Germany, and the advisor, I mentioned him yesterday or the day before, to the film is Magnus Hirschfeld, who was then the most important physician and who dealt with this, had an institution, and also started with transgender surgery. Now he's fleeing. No comment. And of course you recognize the young man in the middle who doesn't play in the film, but everybody knows. Who? Oscar Wilde, of course, Oscar Wilde. So, this is important now. The film isn't about Oscar Wilde. There is nothing that deals with Oscar Wilde in the film. But the filmmakers and the designers, they knew that Oscar Wilde, everybody knows Oscar Wilde who deals with the subject. So if you put Oscar Wilde in a very open and very, there's no question what he's indicating in his way of sitting there, that the audience will immediately know. They will immediately know, okay, that's what it's all about. And if you have the paragraph 175 on top, then there is no question about it, different from the others. And the director is Richard Oswald. We will see him again today. We have seen him. He is one of the most important Jewish film directors in Weimar, Germany, until 35, then 32. He had immediately leave for the United States, and then for some years again worked in Hollywood. It's about social hygiene, meaning it's about health. And this was very important because after the war, many films were produced about all sorts of problems that were like plagues that had to be treated by physicians on the female side, on the male side. So these films also wanted to have an educational appeal. There were films that intended to educate the audience. So you have dozens and dozens of films about sex workers, back then prostitutes, not just because, wow, a scandal, but they wanted to show where does prostitution come from? What are the social reasons? And what should be the consequences? And how to limit the spread of all kinds of maladies and sicknesses. So this has had to be, that's also why the film was introduced by a speaker, like a conference, and Magnus Hirschfeld played a role. And of course, censorship interfered, and we don't have the original film. It was cut so many times that we have a film, a good version, but it doesn't include everything. But it concludes the narrative of the film. So, I just mentioned the social problems. So you have the back entrance and the back stage, staircase, which is dealing with crime, with prostitution, and how to save. And again, Leopold Jesner, Paul Lenny, the directors are Jewish. The leading actors, Wilhelm Dieterle and Fritz Kortner, are Jewish. So you have this very strong impact also on the educational film. Films that try to enlighten now and to show the problems that existed in society and not to refer to them as taboos. You had to talk. The filmmakers wanted that all social problems should be talked about. And in the middle, the street, by Karl Grün, also a Jewish director. And here you can already see, it's not my firm Sternfilm on top. I'm sorry, I don't have a copy. So it's immediately produced for many countries. It's La Strada, the street, La Rue, because they produced immediately with intertitles in these languages, and sometimes also 2 or 3 versions of the film with an actress or an actor from these countries. This was a way at this period during the silent movies, film market was developed. And here you have Erdgeist, which refers to Wedekind. A lot of Wedekind theater plays or Ibsen were put on screen besides Schnitzler and others. And you have a transition from the old-style theater actresses and actors to a young generation. And we will see afterwards how this combines. To the left, which is brilliantly made, also by Polanyi, Wax Museum, where a very traditional way, you know this from many thriller films. In a wax museum, something comes to life, or criminal stories, murder, some mysterious things are told. And again here, the camera, the aesthetics, it's like 2010. Now, it's unbelievable. The way they developed tricks and how dreams moved one into another, and dream in a dream in a dream, and reality in the background. So they were, without digital things, I think they were really creative and succeeded in developing and modernize the medium film through the camera, through light and shadow, through new ways of acting also, that were not really the kind that films were made of until 1919. So this changed, like you could see yesterday with Lubitsch. The drastic shift in style and aesthetics in film, and Lubitsch moved between these 2 dimensions all the time. Again, here you have Husbands or Lovers by Paul Chinner, a Jewish director. Husbands or Lovers, also called New, and it's a dramatic story, and with Emil Jannings, who was one of the leading male actors. And you can already tell from the star of The Way of All Flesh how it worked again, to work in advertisement with sex appeal and then show a very fascinating drama. And Alraune by Henrik Gahlin also, I don't have to say it, all 3 are Jewish directors, but it may be good to know, but sometimes they produced films that didn't have to do anything with Jewish topics. You don't have to be Jewish to produce a non-Jewish film. It's kind of, everything works. And interesting here, I couldn't believe when I found this poster, that this was posted in 1927, but 1927 already is later. There are many things possible now in the last third of the 1920s, of the golden 20s, that wasn't really possible earlier. And does anybody know who the actress Brigitte Helm was? Yeah. She's a Maria in Metropolis, the double or threefold Maria in Metropolis. And this, in effect, started her career. And Alraune is a mystic story. If you put a certain root under a bed, then the virgin lady can become pregnant, and all stories, or an homunculus, an artificial human being is created. So you have all this mysticism and the traditions we have in all 3 religions, but it doesn't have a Jewish topic. So this, and to the left, G.W. Pabst, the director, Secrets of a Soul. It's fantastic. It's the only film I know with the subtitle, a psychoanalytic thriller. which is, of course, fantastic. This is the film I mentioned already. It's the film where really Freud was asked, we want to buy Papst and scriptwriter. We want to produce a film that will make your approach to psychoanalysis popular. We want to produce a film, and we invite you to be the advisor on the set and for the script for this film. And Sigmund Freud, in a very polite manner, said, "Kiss my toes." So, which means, well, I'm not interested. And he said, this is not a way to deal with my scholarship, to deal with my approach to heal human beings. Film, no. And there is another story that relates to this. You all know the name Billy Wilder. And before Billy Wilder became a scriptwriter in Berlin and a famous director in Hollywood, he was a journalist in Vienna and on the lowest level of journalism. So in all urban cities today, we have the lowest level of journalism. I don't know how the newspaper is called in Moscow. You have it everywhere. They're usually for free today. Back then, you had to pay a few groschen. And Billy Wilder was sent to the home of Sigmund Freud in Vienna to interview him what he thinks about film. And Billy Wilder came to the apartment of Sigmund Freud, and the housemaiden opened, and he said he wanted to talk to Mr. Freud. Do you have an appointment? No. And she said, well, it's the lunch break now. You can't disturb Professor Freud. And he insisted, and he had to stand outside. And then Freud came, and then they asked him, what do you want, young man? And he said, well, I just want your opinion on film. And the door was closed. So this was Billy Wilder's experience with psychoanalysis in Vienna. He immediately fled for Berlin then, which is true. So this is Secrets of a Soul. We have, this film exists, and I think in parts of the film is really a brilliant explanation how one can heal trauma, overcome psychological problems, and it's a thriller to attract a lot of people to watch the film. Hercules Meyer, and again to the right is Richard Oswald. Hercules Meyer is not funny for us today as a title, but back then, it's the middle one, Hercules Meyer. In the middle one, back then, the name Hercules Meyer, Hercules, which is a Greek hero, and Meyer, which is a Jew from Schöneberg, doesn't really match. But you have to know the cultural context. Today it doesn't say anything. Why not Hercules Meyer? But everybody knew that Reinhold Schnitzler, the director and actor, was one of the famous Weimar Jewish directors and actors. So in this film there is nothing Jewish, explicitly Jewish, but the whole film is Jewish. And this is something very, very difficult. You can only give an interpretation to what I just said if you refer to the context. If you have the context of filmmaking, the milieus, and know about these people. And to the right, Dr. Bessel's Verwandlung is, again, it's not a Jewish story, but relevant number of participants in this film have a Jewish origin. These films belong to what I call cinematic acculturation. The non-Jewish participants of the filmmaking and the Jewish participants, they didn't care about it, whether they were Jewish or non-Jewish. They were making film. They were artists. They were creative, cinematic intellectuals. And this is what brought them together. As in other fields also, this doesn't mean that at home they didn't have Shabbos candles. This didn't mean that they didn't go to synagogue on the high holidays. Or that they had a Brit Milah with their sons. We don't know about it, but this is something they never spoke about. It was not relevant for their professional life. So the professional life and the private life very often were two sides. and you worked together on the set with many non-Jews, and you went home, and then your family and your friends were Jewish. And so private life and public life, you know, is the same today. It's not different. You know? This is important to realize, but also now we are 27, times are going on, the right-wing movement, anti-Semitism becomes stronger and stronger, but we will deal with this in the last session. So you have these socially very critical film, Asphalt, meaning the streets. And this also exists on DVD. Joe May was also a Jewish director who went to Hollywood but was not successful in Hollywood. So it's always a story of, in many films like here, a fallen lady, and how at the end she shows her good heart and saves someone and is saved herself. So these films very often have a happy end or show ways how to achieve a happy end. Geschlecht in Fesseln, it's, what is it called? I don't know whether there exists an English version. It's simply about the fate of women whose husbands were criminals and are sitting in prison, meaning they can't have intercourse, they can't have sex. And the film makes this a topic. Why should the women of criminals suffer if their husbands are in jail? They have the right with their husbands to have a sexual life, which is as a topic fascinating for the time. And in this film doesn't have a happy end because the system doesn't allow for any reform in this field. In the middle, it's the actor Siegfried Arnoux. You may know him from Hollywood films later on. He also had to get to Hollywood. Meyer makes this luck, and it's quite interesting whether the advertising, whether he is called Meyer or Moritz, it's all the same. It's like Sally or Ernst Lubitsch. It's also the same. It doesn't matter at all. And here you have the first film with the lady in the center as the leading female role. Do you recognize her from much later films in Hollywood? This is the first leading role that Hedy Lamarr was ever playing. Her career started in Berlin, in Vienna, not in Hollywood. And the film doesn't have, the movie doesn't have anything Jewish, but the dialogue has many references to normal Jewish life in Germany or Jewish life in the past in Germany. And many actors are Jewish, and the director, and the scriptwriter, and Hedy Lamarr, and quite a number of others. So the film was a huge success in Germany because the two stars, Hans Moser and Heinz Rühmann, they were top male stars in the late 1920s, 1930s, and particularly during Nazi filmmaking. They also had their career after 45. And because of these stars and the success of the film was running until 1937. And in 1937 happened to the film what happened to many other Jewish artists who were still in Germany. They were thrown out, and the film was not shown anymore. So it's not always content, Jewish content that makes it for Jewish film, but also the participants. So now you have seen many, many films. Some of them still exist, some of them do not exist. One of the 1930 already very important and successful films is Free from the Gas Station. It's a musical with Lillian Harvey. And you have there the three from the gas station. Then you have Heinz Rühmann. You have Lillian Harvey, and you have Willy Fritsch. But the title is the three from the gas station. What's the third person? Because we have a third person there. They manage the gas station. But the advertisement during the Nazi period and then also after 45, they never restored the original meaning that the third one was a Jewish actor, Karl Weiss, and due to they wanted to go on showing the film, and so he was not mentioned, not in the credits, not on the posters, but he was one of the three guys. So censorship is a very weird thing, and here you have only Lily Harvey and Willy Fritsch. At the end, also here, but here you have, it's an old one, before 1933, you have Oskar Karlweis, a Jewish actor also. And the Goebbels didn't like this movie, although it was a huge success as a musical, because Lillian Harvey, who was after Marlene Dietrich, a leading German actress, refused to work for German film anymore. She married and disappeared for a while. She was also in the United States, but didn't look for a career. So each and every poster, each and every film at the end of the 1930s, and then with the change to 33, 37, the Nazi period has its own, I would say, cultural and political history. This one is, some of you may have seen this film, I don't know. No? Girls in uniform. It was a success all over Europe and also in the United States by a Jewish director, Leontine Sagan. She had to escape Germany in 1933 and went to South Africa, and was based on a play about a lesbian relationship in a German-Prussian school, and it was the first full-length feature film that showed the lesbian relationship. And you see here the posters that were common, and you see it's a girls' school, so you only see women and girls here, and it's a very anti-militaristic film as well. And in the 1950s, since this film had been so popular, there was a remake in Germany with Romy Schneider, whom you may know, and the remake is just about girls in a school, but there's no lesbian relationship. So the Nazis were rather successful with their way of dealing with our modern world. Again, this is the film with Hedy Lamarr. It's just important that her fame was established that in one film she was nude, produced in 1933, it was called Ekstase, and in literature everybody writes about it, but in fact her sexiness, her body was already in this film a topic and very important, but in a funny way. In terms of film history and Jewish actresses that became stars in Hollywood, Hedy Lamarr is a very important person. Now, I'm sure you have seen, but you don't realize that she was the actress you have seen in this Hollywood movie. I assume so. Now, the first film clip, Pandora's Box. We already saw the director, G.W. Pabst, one of the very important and I would say creative directors who also had to leave in 1933. And the film is based on Wedekind's theater play Lulu. Now, those who deal with literature know that Lulu has become in itself a topic in literature, with references to Lulu, or that the female character just is called Lulu, although it's not the play by Wedekind. And Pabst made two films with the fantastic American actress Louise Brooks. Specifically for this film and the second film, he invited her to come from Hollywood to to Berlin and to work with him as the character Lulu of Wedekind's play, but it's only loosely based on the play. We see a scene rather from the beginning of the film where Lulu, living in a very fine upscale apartment, is waiting for her lover, who is a very well-established chief editor of Daily in Berlin, and he let's say, he keeps her. So she's financed, so to say, funded by Dr. Schön. Now, the first time that Dr. Schön is mentioned, the audience will know, oh, it's a Jewish character. But we are now in the period where in this kind of acculturated films, you don't have explicit Jewish stories. You have to see, you have to watch, you have to give an interpretation to what you see. And this is what we will do right now in this first sequence. So this again is a colored poster of the film, 1928. It's silent. And what is intriguing on this poster? Not just the male, not just the man longing for her, showing desire, but also a woman. So this is kind of boom. You can imagine how the right-wing press, media, and censorship tried to interfere. But we still have it. It was the movie theaters and all around Berlin. Yes?
There is a rainbow behind. Is it just like a coincidence?
You give it an interpretation. I don't know whether they used the rainbow at this time in Berlin. But you know, the designer, I don't know who it was. The person who did the design this poster, he has thought a lot about it. It's obvious. Because you get here a message. If I would be director, I would say, no, wait a minute, let's discover this by the audience, by themselves, when they sit in the movie theater. And here the advertisement, the promotion already says a lot. You will see. So that's in fact gives the note, but the menorah is in her apartment. You know, nothing says anything everywhere in the script or an interview by Papst. It's the audience. You can decide. Is she Jewish? Is she not Jewish? Has he brought it because it's also his apartment? No. No, we are in the 28, acculturated. The difference doesn't make a difference anymore. They will learn, all the people in reality, it makes a difference. But in film, it doesn't. So if we have time afterwards, we will see a longer sequence of this film, what happened to the nice couple. Fritz Kortner, the male the Dr. Schön, he was at this time one of the most famous, popular actors in Germany and Austria. And he, how say it, he was a legend in playing Shylock in Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice. But there are many, many films where he played all kinds of characters. And because of his very politically minded public appearance, the Nazis hated him. He was on top of the list of Jewish actors one should boycott and one should discriminate already in this period. And throughout, let's say, 27, 28, 29. Now, I have mentioned Otto Schnitzler before. Who has read works by Otto Schnitzler? Has someone read Fräulein Else, the inner monologue of a young Viennese girl? No? It's one of the most beautiful, very short pieces he wrote, and Schnitzler developed this kind of inner monologue that becomes a text to be spoken, to be read, and if you say inner monologue, it is already something to perform on a stage in theater or on the screen. So before it was transferred to the screen, it was staged, Fräulein Else, but it is a little novel, novella. And it's about a 16, 17 years old girl who goes with friends into the Alps for skiing in the winter holiday, and her father in Vienna has serious financial problems, and the one man, kind of a banker who can help him and give him credit, is staying at the same hotel as his daughter. We are living in the period of Freud, and you can imagine the father implicitly tells his daughter via a letter, please help, I'm broke, ask him to give us credit. Now, which father would ask his 16-year-old daughter in a hotel far away to ask a rich banker for money? So it's obvious, the tension, and she can't understand. And in her inner monologue, it's on and on, but father, what is mother saying? Why are you asking me? So this is very important, this inner feeling of a 16-year-old girl who has a love interest but not really has had intimate relation. She is very young, and her father simply does something that is far beyond, but would fit Schnitzler and Freud with their depictions and analysis of gender relations about 1990, 1920. So she now knows, because this rich banker, Dorstey, has told her, I will give your father the credit, but I have a little wish. I just want to see you naked once. Now, you have to, not what you may think immediately, but what's going on in the mind of a 16-year-old girl in this situation. And the first thing, of course, she is thinking, looking into mirror, thinking about her father and mother and what will happen. And she decides to commit suicide, but to commit suicide in a way that the father will get the money. And she takes Veronal, which is kind of a very strong sleeping pill that still exists today. Don't use it. And only in film. And there's also something else to it I will tell you afterwards. And we see now this scene of close to the end of the film, that she has taken Veronal and how she wants to help the father anyhow. And the actress is Elisabeth Bergner, the Jewish actress. She also had to leave Germany for England and also worked in Hollywood. And she was one of the most popular actresses on the stage in Vienna. I know from his diaries that Schnitzler was very much in love with her, but in terms of age, he could have been her grandfather. And some people contend, and me too, but I can't prove, that he wrote this Fräulein Else novella not explicitly, implicitly for her to be performed with her. And in 27, I think, he was at the Deutsches Theater here in Berlin with Elisabeth Bergner. I didn't know what they did in the breaks. And they were reading Fräulein Else on stage, Schnitzler and her. So it's just a little story that surrounds the whole film. Now, it's a silent film, so it's a dramatic music, of course. This is one of the best posters and shots from the film. It's painted after a shot, because before she takes the Veronal, she's looking into a mirror. Again, typical for the German Jewish modernism interwar period, referring to literature, to romanticism, the doppelganger motif, there are two of me, psychoanalysis, what really is in a mind, the secrets of a soul. So this very much relates, and this is then taken to Hollywood. So the films that refer to the psychoanalytical levels that were produced after 1933, and then particularly at the end of the 1930s and 40s, you will find the same names of directors, scriptwriters, cameramen, and so on. So it's just, in fact, it's close to the end of the film. And now, again, without the context, without interpretation, why should she be a Jewish girl? There's nothing now indicating by any means. It's only if you listen to Here and There is Said, if you know the novel by Schnitzler, The Inner Monologue. And over the years, I had fights with German professors of German literature who said, no, there's nothing Jewish in it. She is not Jewish at all. Schnitzler wrote a novel about a young girl, bourgeois society, and there's a financial problem, and he tries to deal with the awakening of sexuality and desire in this young girl, and your interpretation that it's a Jewish story is typical for Jewish neurosis or whatsoever. And then I took the text and said at a certain point it is said that in the film plays in spring, that she at the holidays will be, near place in August, at the holidays she will be with a family. And I asked the German professor of literature, okay, which Christian holidays are there in September? You know, it's so this is Weimar modernism. You don't have to say, well, now I have to show to prove. In the film Pandora's Box, okay, we see the menorah, but the camera doesn't stand still then. Yeah, it's part of it. The little lamb, he's playing with innocence. Yeah, the painting, the face in the painting is her face. We didn't talk about it. Yeah, so this kind of visual modernism is strong because it's an expression of integration, of acculturation, of equality, of something that is kind of crowning 300 years of German Jewish history. And this makes the end in 32, 33 even the more bitter. Because what could have become of this literary and visual culture and development? So, Fräulein Else, there were some films later on, but not really successful. There's even one film with, I think, Jane Fonda. But till today, we are waiting for a real good remake or new film.